So far, we have only used comparison operators to take decisions with if-else statements, right? But let's suppose we want to check if two values are actually equal instead of one being greater or less than the other. And for that, we have different equality operators. So let's start again with an age variable and set it equal to 18. And I'm using age all the time because it's so easy to make simple calculations with it. So let's now create an if statement which will log to the console that the person just became an adult only if the age is exactly 18. So we can use an if statement, as we already know. And now to check if the age is exactly 18, we use the triple equal. Okay, and that's it. Let's now write the block of this if statement and then execute it, and then I will explain what happened here a little bit better. Now, whenever our if block only has one line, we actually don't need the curly braces. Okay, so we don't need to create this block if we only have one line. So we can omit this and only write this one line of code. In this case, you just became an adult. So let's test this. And indeed, the result is that we see this string logged to the console. And if the value would be something else, for example 19, then age is no longer equal to 18, and so we shouldn't see this result. And indeed. But let's put it back to 18. Okay, so how does this equality operator here actually work? Well, just like the comparison operators, this operator will return a true or a false value. So a Boolean value. Only that in this case, true will only be the result of this operator in case that both sides are exactly the same. All right, let's actually show that result to you. And actually we can do that right here in the console. So if I say 18 equal to 18, this will be true. But if I say 18 equal to 19, it will be false. And so that's exactly what we used here as a condition in this if block. So don't confuse the assignment, which is just the single equal, with the comparison operator, which is this triple equal. Now, besides this triple equal, we also have a double equal. So the difference is that this one here with the three equals is called the strict equality operator. It's strict because it does not perform type coercion, and so it only returns true when both values are exactly the same. On the other hand, there's also the loose equality operator, which is only two equals, and the loose equality operator actually does type coercion. So let's see that here in the console again. So in this case, I can do 18, the string, equal 18, the number, and it will still give me true. So again, the double equal does type coercion. So what this means is that this string here, this 18, will be converted to a number. And then the number 18 is the same as this number 18. Now, as I mentioned, the triple equal does not perform type coercion. And so let me show that to you. And so it's false, because 18 the string is of course different than 18 the number. So it's not the same, and JavaScript does not convert them for us. So let's try that also here in our code. And I'm just going to copy this one. And then this. And let's say here loose and here strict. So if I run this now, both these conditions should be true. So 18 the number, which is the age right now, is equal to this 18 the number, right? It's strictly equal, but it's also loosely equal. So 18 the number is of course also loosely equal to this 18. So let's run that. And indeed, we get the strict and the loose string printed to the console. But now if we change this to 18 the string, well, what do you expect to happen then? And indeed, only this line of code here is executed. So this one which says loose here, as we see here. And so that's because of the result that I showed you earlier, which is that with the loose equality operator, 18 the string is the same as 18 the number, because 18 the string will be converted to 18 the number. So I hope that's not too confusing for you. It is actually quite a confusing topic in JavaScript, because this loose equality operator, so this one here, is full of really weird rules and behaviors. This means that if we use this one here, this can introduce many hard to find bugs into our code. So as a general rule for clean code, avoid the loose equality operator as much as you can. So when comparing values, always use strict equality with the 3 equal signs as I showed you here. And that's the reason why I showed you this one first. This is something that actually most JavaScript developers advise you to do. So it's a good rule for sure, even if we actually need type conversion. In that case, it's better to convert the value manually before the comparison than relying on the double equal operator. So always default to the triple equal operator and pretend that this one doesn't even exist. Okay, of course I still needed to show it to you, but from now on we will assume that it doesn't even exist. Great, so let's do another example here, because I actually have some more great stuff to show you. And the first thing that I want to show you is that there is a pretty simple way of getting a value from any web page. We can do that by using the prompt function. And again, we will learn what functions are in the next section, but this is how it works. So we just write prompt and then a string. And let's ask the user for his favorite number. So what's your favorite number? So let's see what happens when we load this now. So we get this prompt window. And here we can input something and then hit return. So basically all this here will create a value, in this case the number that I just inputted. But we need to store this value somewhere. So let's create a variable called favorite. And so it's in this favorite variable where the value that we put into that form will be stored. So let's take a look at that. Console.log favorite. So 23. And you see that it now logged the value. But it's printed here in white. So remember, that means that it is a string. Let me prove that to you by checking the type. So by now we know how to always check the type, right? It's pretty simple. And so now we should see string. Now, of course, we have to give the number again. So 23 is the result, and it is indeed a string. So now let's write some logic here to check if this is a great number, basically. So let's say if the favorite number is equal, and let's use this one first. So if the number is equal to 23, then let's log to the console. Cool. 23 is an amazing number. Okay? And so now this should actually work, shouldn't it? So 23, and we get this result. So again, why is that? Well, because we used the double equals here, which is the loose equality operator. And this one will do type coercion, right? So right now what we have here is basically 23, the string, which is this one here, equal 23. And so this one will be converted to a number, and then the number 23 is of course equal to 23. However, if we use the triple equals, so the strict operator, then it should not work. So 23 again, but we do not get that log. And by now you already understand why that is, right? So remember how I said that we should always use this one. And so we now have to convert this string to a number. And we can actually wrap all of this into that number function that we used to convert. So number, and then we put all of this here, which is the one that will generate the string 23, and then we wrap that into the parentheses to execute the number converter. And so right now, favorite is going to be a number, and so then this should be back to working, because then at this point we have 23 equal 23. And so that, of course, is true here. And so then this line of code will run. So 23, and indeed it does. And you see that it's also now pink, meaning that it's a number. And if I use something else, then of course this here is also false. So if I have 22 here, then this will of course be false because they are different. But this actually brings me to my next point, which is the next cool thing that I wanted to show you. And that is that we can actually add more condition to an if-else statement. So far we have only used if-else. However, we can also add an else-if block. And that works like this. So else, and then a new if. So let's now do favorite equal to 7. And then let's say 7 is also a cool number. And so what this will do is to first check if the number is 23 here. Then if it's not, it will of course go to the next block, which is this one, and then it will check this condition. Well, if the number is 7 now, then run this code. And then at the end, we can also add an else block. So let's say number is not 23 or 7. So let's test that. So if I put 7 now, we get 7 is also a cool number. And so that's our else if block here. So this second one here running. But now if I do something else that is neither 23 nor 7, then we go to that last else block here. Okay, and we can actually keep adding more and more. So we can do this as long as we want. So we can do else if favorite triple equal 9, for example. Let's simply grab this one here. Say 9 is also a cool number. And then a number is not 23 or 7 or 9, just to make it really complete. And so now if we use the 9, then 9 is also a cool number. So we now have a way of not going immediately into the else block once the initial condition is false. So if this one is false, it doesn't immediately go into the else block. There are now other conditions that can be checked one after the other. First, we check for 23, but if it's not 23, we check if it's 7. If it's not 7, we check if it's 9, and if it's not 9, well, then the final else block will be executed. Okay? I hope that makes sense. And we actually use this from time to time. Okay, and now to finish, there's also an operator for different. So we talked about equal, but of course, there must also be an operator which does the opposite. And so that's the different operator. And so let's now check if the favorite is different from 23. So we use the exclamation mark and then the double equal, which is the strict version. And then there's also the loose version, which is this one. So with just one equal. But just as before, always use the strict version. So if the number is not 23, we can log something like saying, why not the 23? Okay, let's try that. And let's use 9. So what do you think will happen when we use the number 9? So we get first this log here from this else if block, right? But then we also get this why not 23 message. And that's of course coming from this if block here. So 9 is of course different from 23, and so this code here is being executed. But now if we actually use the 23, then only this line of code is executed and this one here isn't, because the favorite number is now equal to 23. And so of course it doesn't make sense to then execute this one here. So sometimes we need the different operator and sometimes we need the equality operator. Just choose whatever you need to solve any particular problem. In both cases, just make sure to use the strict version of the operator.